By the end of this video, you'll be convinced that Lexi and Fez are the only perfect match in Euphoria. Warning, spoilers ahead. None of the information in this video is to be taken as fact. We are merely basing on stereotypical functions using the Myers-Briggs personality types. You do not have to put yourself in a box, but we hope to help you learn some things about yourself. What draws us all into Euphoria so much are, of course, the characters. There's a diverse cast playing high schoolers who are seeking to overcome their own varying traumas. You got the yassified makeup, the insane parties, and of course, the all-so-important relationships. In Season 2 especially, relationships and romance came to the forefront. We followed the storylines of Nate and Cassie, Rue and Jules, along with Elliot, causing an entire love triangle between the two leading characters, and we even saw the progression of Kat and Ethan's relationship, which seemed to have a solid 3 seconds of screen time.
I think it's terminal.
But with all this romance, we also got to witness how none of these couples actually worked. They were full of unhealthy and toxic behavior on both sides, so it's no surprise that none of them were intact by the end of the season. However, there were 2 characters this season that none of us expected to form a connection, and that was Lexi and Fez. It was a pretty big surprise to see these 2 characters come together as the strongest relationship in the entire show, since they have wildly different personality types. So the question is, why do they work? Where do they clash? And most importantly, why are they the only surviving couple of the 2nd season? Lexi and Fez have 2 very different personality types. In the Myers-Briggs method of typing personalities, we'll say MBTI for short, Lexi is pinned as an INFJ, meaning she is thoughtful, observant, and empathetic, whereas Fez is typed as the ISFP personality type, which explains how he is passive, down-to-earth, and practical. To go deep into their relationship, we will be dividing our analysis into 4 different components: intuition, feeling, thinking, and sensing. The strongest and most developed personality function of Lexi Howard is something called introverted intuition. The use of this function is to take patterns and symbols from the present to create plans and visions for the future, and this is how Lexi makes most of her decisions. This is shown in this scene, where she is meticulously planning out her entire life in extreme detail.
This might sound kind of crazy, but my plan is to have like 3 kids at 30. Like each one a year and a half apart. So from 30 to 58, I can focus on, being a good mom and raising my kids, etc., etc.
As Fez himself even says.
I mean, you really got this all figured out, huh?
Which is one of her greatest skills as an INFJ personality type. The personality function that helps back up Lexi's intuition is her emotional side. This is controlled by a function called extroverted feeling. It means that Lexi values social harmony. She is very aware of the feelings of those around her. Ethics are super important to her, making sure that she is doing what society would deem as making her a good person. Her morals are pretty flexible, as she feels the need to question them constantly to see if they're still harmonious with those in her social circle. Take a look at this clip, for example.
I keep second-guessing myself and getting anxious, like if people are gonna think that it's good or bad, or if it's gonna upset people.
But why would anyone be upset by it?
Yeah, you really stroking the bee's nest with that one.
Am I?
You see what we mean, right? She is constantly concerned with how her actions will be perceived and how they will make others feel. She needs to have her feelings validated by Fez to make sure that she won't be misunderstood. Getting into the less developed aspects of Lexi comes her introverted thinking function. This controls her logical reasoning. And because this feeling is introverted, it means unlike her feelings, her logic is completely subjective to her. When taking in information, Lexi has to process it for herself and figure out if what she is learning is logically consistent. For instance, look at how in this clip, she sees inconsistencies in the concept of her not being able to celebrate Christmas just because her family is Jewish.
Have a good Christmas, or are you Jewish or something?
Yeah, well, my mom's Jewish, but she always says if the Christians can steal Christmas from the pagans, then the Jews can also.
You say the Christians stole Christmas?
Well, in order to convert the Germanic pagans who celebrated winter solstice and stuff, the Christians were like, F it, let's just say Jesus was born this day and you can hang tinsel and stuff.
And that's not the only presentation of her introverted thinking. In the very same scene, she probes Fez on why he deals drugs, so she can process it and make it make sense for herself.
Can I ask you a personal question?
What's up?
How do you justify dealing drugs then?
Because of Lexi's thinking skills, paired up with her planning and calculating nature, she is one, if not the smartest character in the entire show. Lexi's least developed function is called extroverted sensing. As the name suggests, it controls what her 5 senses take in from the outside world and how she is affected by those senses, meaning it begins to counteract with her strong imagination. forcing her to focus on the present moment. Despite this being an inferior function, Lexi actually makes good use of it. There are many scenes in Season 2 where Lexi is watching the world around her, and when she gets her idea for the play, she follows around people like her sister Cassie or her friend Rue, and uses all of the events that she is witnessing to write into her production, without actually having to get involved in the moment. So that's it for Lexi for now. Let's move on to fan favorite and Lexi's love interest, Fez. The strongest aspect of Fez's personality is his introverted feeling function. This means that he is dominated by his emotions, and with this being an introverted function, it means that his feelings are extremely personal to him. Fez has a strong yet individual moral compass. He is not concerned with them having to be conventional or influenced by those around him, unlike Lexi. And this can help explain why Fez decides to be a drug dealer. While this job is viewed as bad in the eyes of society, Fez deals to high schoolers, but does so with his own principles of what feels right and wrong to him. We can see how his stubbornness over these principles clash with others when he decides to stop selling to Rue. He knows that if he were to carry on selling to Rue, it would break his own rules, and no matter how hard Rue tries to convince him, Fez won't change his mind. This can also explain why he decides to beat up Nate in the middle of a party. Despite the fight causing a shift in the party's atmosphere and there being many other better places to carry this out, his emotions take over, and he just goes straight for Nate in order to satisfy what feels right to him, turning a room full of fun into a hell of complete chaos. Even though this scene was so chaotic, we'd be lying if we said that we weren't all happy to see Fez get his revenge on Nate. The function that backs up Fez's emotions is called extroverted sensing, which he and Lexi both share as functions. However, where this is somewhat of an afterthought in Lexi's personality, it is a lot more developed in Fez's character, and is one of the aspects that really dominates who he is. We can see how present this function is in Fez throughout the entire season, but it's clear to see just how present Fez is in every moment. You can see how Fez is so tuned in to everything happening around him. He is cautious in the way he moves, and is constantly scanning his environment for potential threats or dangerous situations. Not only does Fez share the same sensing function as Lexi, but he also shares the introverted intuition personality function. But Fez's ability of using this is a lot weaker than Lexi's. His intuition helps him visualize future events and how situations can play out, yet his strong sensing function overrides this, which means that he is more of an improviser rather than a meticulous planner like Lexi. Finally, we get into Fez's way of using logic in his personality. As Fez's logic is a lot less important to him in comparison to his feelings, ultimately it helps him manage his business and life in general. We see that he is logically objective, seeking hard facts in the world around him in order to make sense of things, which contrasts the way that Lexi, being an introverted thinker, has to make her mind up for herself. Fez's extroverted thinking helps him keep his business afloat, whilst looking after his grandma, who is in a coma, and raising Ashtray. Now that we've been through both Lexi and Fez's personalities, and seen what drives them, we're ready to get into why they're the best couple on the show. For starters, their varying functions and levels of development complement each other, as where one person lacks, the other makes up for, and the aspects that they have in common help to support the relationship. In this scene, Lexi is worried that she's going to upset everyone with her play, extroverted feeling. So Fez uses his introverted feeling to help validate Lexi during her panic. He gives her his own personal take on the situation, which allows Lexi to logically process if she's making the right decision.
If someone invited me to a play and they didn't even tell me I was a character in it, I definitely have some questions.
Like bad questions?
Depends on the play.
Well, would you be upset by it?
Depends on the play. The intentions of the person who made the play.
My intentions are good.
You ain't got nothing to worry about.
If the relationship between Fez and Lexi were to be a science experiment, we could put the tubes of their feeling functions together to result in a pretty good reaction. Another strength of Fexi, yes, I just said Fexi, is that they both share extroverted sensing, which means that they both prefer to be present and engaged in what is going on around them. Fez's sensing function is also a lot more developed than Lexi's, which leads him to be consistently chilled out and comfortable in any environment, whereas Lexi likes to observe passively, but can come across more anxious when something stressful is happening. Take the fight between Cassie and Maddie, for example, when Rue exposes Cassie for sleeping with Nate. Lexi is a lot more frantic and struggles to control the environment. Can you notice in this scene how despite Lexi being completely aware of what is happening, she freezes and doesn't really know what to do? Dramatic moments like this can be especially stressful to INFJs. However, with Fez having a strong sensing function, he's able to take over while still making sure that Lexi is okay. When we look at both of these qualities in Fez and Lexi's relationship, it makes sense how they work well together compared to a lot of other couples in the show. If we take Cassie and Nate, their dominant functions are extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking, causing an unhealthy dynamic where Cassie becomes completely dependent on Nate. She wants him to decide what she wears, who she's allowed to talk to, and just overall how she lives her life, which feeds into Nate's desire to have control over every situation in his life.
I belong to you, and I won't ever complain.
Lexi and Fez don't have this issue. Lexi is able to confide in Fez about the way she feels as she trusts him so much, and Fez gets to have fun in finding out who Lexi really is as a person.
Say if I like a girl, I want to find out what she's about on my own, you know? I don't want to Google the scraps. I want to peel back the layers.
Even though on paper, or rather on TV, this relationship seems perfect, not everything is sunshine and rainbows. As we know, Lexi's imagination is off the scale, and she constantly has her mind 5 steps ahead into the future, whereas Fez prefers to improvise and live his life in the present, which could cause problems as ISFPs are not known to be great at making plans. So Fez's chilled out nature could possibly clash with Lexi's constant need for scheduling her life. We saw how, as soon as Fez mentioned the show The Little House on the Prairie, Lexi was already making plans for living on a farm and figuring out how to make it work for her. This is sweet and all, but Fez could get frustrated with Lexi not being able to live in the moment and relax. If we went back to our science experiment, this would cause a bit of an awkward and tense result. But the overwhelming good qualities and the personal development of Lexi and Fez's personality functions can easily outweigh this small change. So, to answer the question, yes, Lexi and Fez are the most compatible match on the show. And even though ISFPs and INFJs seem like an unlikely and somewhat awkward combo, as long as Lexi and Fez stay on the right track they're already going down, they can continue to progress going into Season 3. Please subscribe. Okay, thanks, bye.